All right, Penn State loses, falls just short to Oregon 45-37. My name is Connor Griffin. I am currently at the Airbnb. I'm staying at in Indianapolis. I had to walk about 45 minutes home just because the Ubers were too expensive. I kind of wanted to walk off the pain, walk off the sorrow, clear my head a little bit before I got on here. And I'm tired. I'm really tired. It's 1:15 in the morning, and I figured I would at least come on here for a little bit and talk about this game because it was an epic game. It was a phenomenal game of football. If you're just a casual fan watching, no real rooting interest, it was spectacular. And I was having a ton of fun. I was really stressed out for a good chunk of it, but I was having a ton of fun. And there was so much stuff that went down, and the fight that Penn State showed going up against the number one team in the country, at many times taking it to the number one team in the country, which we'll get to in a second. It was a very commendable effort, one that gets you feeling pretty solid about this playoff run that is now to come, which we have a huge dilemma, which I did not think was going to be a dilemma coming into this day, on our hands for tomorrow. The dilemma with the bracket. Who knows where Penn State's going to fall, where we'll be seated, but we'll get to that in a second. Still, though, while I appreciate the fact that the players never gave up, they kept fighting their way back. They were, like I said, at some points, really taking it to Oregon, the only unbeaten team left in the country. Still, you wind up in a situation where James Franklin can't get the win. This was, in my eyes, and people may disagree, the best, close Franklin loss that we've had. It's been so frustrating where, Franklin, he's so close to getting it done. He's right there. And we just can't do it. We can't close that gap. And it's been just aggravating. I mean, this year against Ohio State was the most aggravating loss like that, where it's like, dude, we literally had it on the one and we couldn't punch it in. It was such a visual, real-life representation of what's been going on forever with James Franklin. Anyway, this one did not really hurt as much. I'm still really hurting right now. But because we were playing with house money to begin with, and they showed a lot of heart in this game and had a chance to tie it with 2 minutes to play, this was awesome. And we didn't really think we were going to be here in the first place, and for us to come out the way that we did on short notice, and the fans showed up, and it was really like almost a home game in Lucas Oil Stadium. It was awesome. It was really good to see. And again, gives you a lot of hope moving forward. Still, though, the national narrative will be, oh, James Franklin sucks. He can't win big games. Now it might be Drew Aller sucks. He throws picks that are crazy, and he's awful, blah, 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 blah. But we'll get to all that in a second. The main thing I want to get to, and it might be totally irrelevant by the time I post this video or by the time you guys are watching this, because the seeding might have already been out, the bracket might have already been out, but it is a dilemma. We are having a serious dilemma right now because it's not casual fans, it's not trolls on Twitter who are perpetuating this stuff. It's real, legitimate college football personalities who are at the top of the sport and do sway opinion. Joel Klatt just put out his bracket for tomorrow, what he thinks the bracket should be. It's unbelievable. I had to do a double take. I couldn't believe my eyes. I came into today, at the very least, thinking Penn State, if we were to lose, should get the 5 seed. Maybe the 6, depending on what happens in the SEC championship game. But you can't be penalizing Penn State unless we were to get walloped by 3 or 4 touchdowns, which for a second, I did think that was a possibility. Once this game got rolling, I was like, we might really get our doors blown off of us. But if a team is going to come out and take on that extra game to try and win a conference championship game, and they go toe-to-toe with the number one team in the country, a team that nobody has beaten, and they only lose by 8 points, they lose by 1 possession, had a chance to tie it up late in the game, you move them back now. Joel Klatt has us falling back to 8. He's moving us back 3 spots because we lost to the number one team in the country, someone nobody's beaten, in an extremely entertaining and hard-fought game of football that was so close in the end. He has us moving back 3 spots, not in the 5 seed, now in the 8 seed. And Ohio State, who was sitting on their couch, Notre Dame, who was sitting on their couch, they're going to wind up ahead of us. I have a big fucking problem with that. Pardon my French. That is a major issue. But that's what he has right now. That's what a lot of people are saying. Connor, Ohio State and Penn State played each other this year. At Penn State, and Ohio State beat you. I get that. But the point is, Penn State beat everybody on their schedule who they were supposed to beat. You can't say the same about Ohio State. That loss to Michigan one of the worst losses I've ever seen. Definitely the worst loss of this college football season. It was not just an upset. It was embarrassing. Embarrassing. All you had to do was beat the worst Michigan team we've seen in a decade when you have the most talented roster in the country. They couldn't do it. And because they screwed up, that's why we were in this situation where now we had this extra game where we had to play the number one team in the country, somebody who was going to be really tough to beat, somebody nobody's beaten so far this year. And yeah, we lose in a dogfight. You're saying now we got to move back in the rankings? We got to get a worse seed in the bracket because now we're getting punished for Ohio State screwing up in the first place? How does that make any sense? You're setting a precedent that conference championship games, you just shouldn't play in them. Shouldn't play in them. If you're in a situation where you're already in the playoff and you got a good seed that you like right now, yeah, just forfeit the game. Don't play. Because now, yes, while Penn State did have an opportunity to go out and maybe get a 1 seed tonight, with the way it worked out, probably would have gotten a 1 seed. You now played an extra game. You're not going to get a bye. You're going to move back in the rankings. You're going to have to play a tougher opponent who has now probably had 3 weeks of rest, whereas you only have 2. Yeah, okay, we get it at home, but it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Again, if we had come out and gotten smacked tonight and lost by 3 or 4 touchdowns, move us back in the rankings, clearly. Clearly, I'm all for that. These games, they have to matter to some extent. But you can't penalize these teams and then have the teams who are sitting at home today not playing in a conference championship game. Notre Dame, by the way, is a key culprit of this. You can't then move them above the teams that were just playing for a conference championship. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. I know Ohio State has the head-to-head over us, but it's such a bad precedent that we're setting. If we had known, again, that we were going to move back in the rankings with a loss, that we were going to have to add an extra game to our schedule, risk injury, risk fatigue, have a week less of preparation than the team that we're going to be facing in the first round of the playoff, and that team is going to be way more difficult than it would have been before. Why play in the game? Why play in the Big Ten championship game? So that's my problem. And if the committee has any sense of just self-awareness, any common sense, you have to keep Penn State either at 5 or at 6. I think because of Texas losing, I think they're probably going to be at 5 and we'll be at 6. But you can't put Notre Dame above us. You cannot put Ohio State above us. I'll have a major, major problem if that happens. Anyway, we'll get into the game now. And I apologize if that's a long rant because, again, some of you might be watching this after the fact and you might have no interest in me debating where Penn State should be seated because we already got seated. And that's already been out there for a couple hours. But anyway, to get into the actual game, if you had said coming in, Penn State's not only going to score 37 points, but they're going to have over 500 yards of offense. They're going to have more yards than Oregon. They're going to get over 8 yards a carry. They're going to be over 50% on third down, and they're going to go 2 for 2 on fourth down. You're thinking, how the hell do we lose that game? How do we lose that game? This was, a great performance. And as I said, it was an epic game. I would love to know what the reaction was from just the general public. And I'll look back at the broadcast and see how Nessler and Danielson, were they freaking out? Or were they just loving life calling this game? Because they've gotten a bunch of stinkers this year on CBS. But yeah, it's the defense. I've said it all year. I've said it all year. And I got guys like Brandon Walker who's saying to my face, oh yeah, you guys got an elite defense. And then when I say, no, we don't, he yells at me and he's like, dude, I'm trying to prop up your team. Come on, whoa, whoa, whoa. No, I'm being dead honest. I don't want to mislead anybody. I will be completely transparent about this team. I'm not a homer who's just going to say, oh, lollipops and rainbows, we're the best team in the land, and we have no weaknesses, we can do no wrong. But no, I'll tell you where I see weaknesses. This defense has been a weakness all season. All season. Linebacker is a problem. I've said it all year. Serious problem. They're too slow. Can't really cover the middle of the field. We weren't able to get much of a pass rush tonight, which we knew that was going to be the case. We know that they like to get the ball out quick. We know That Dylan Gabriel, they protect him pretty well. You're not going to be able to get much of a pass rush. Can we think of another way to create chaos defensively? Can we think of another way to stop them? It's been all year. We know that these teams, because of our elite pass rushers, these edge defenders, we know that they're going to try and get the ball out quick. Do we have a counter? And we just don't. Dylan Gabriel torched us today. Tez Johnson, what did he have? 11 catches for 181 yards, I think it was what his stat line was. That might be wrong, but my God, I mean, torched us today. In those first 3 drives defensively, touchdown. It was painful to watch. Oregon was getting whatever they wanted to. Also, they ran the ball pretty well. Compared to how we ran the ball, not as great, but still were able to get some pretty good chunk plays on the ground, able to move the sticks on the ground. Like, it was a problem. It was a real problem. Thankfully, they kept Dylan Gabriel, for the most part, contained, but he did have a couple big plays where he was able to use his legs and pick up a first with his feet. And, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know where to go with this defense. I've been saying it all year. Tom Allen isn't it. I knew it was going to come back to bite us. Again, another thing that I bring up to people, and they say, well, Connor, can't you just be happy? Can't you just say your team's 11-1, you're going to a Big Ten championship game, and it's great to be a Penn State and Indy Lion? Yeah, it is great. But I can still acknowledge where I see holes, and there are a ton of holes with this defense. Ton of holes. It's a shame. Penalties. They've been committing penalties all year. What did they have? 3 penalties? One of them was special teams. But 3 personal fouls in the first quarter, or in the first, 20 minutes, whatever it was. Just gifted Oregon 45 yards of penalties right off the bat. Can't be doing it. But it's what we've seen from this defense all year. They're undisciplined. They have so much trouble getting off the field. They give so many extra yards to these offenses. And in a game where you're going up against the number 1 team in the country, there isn't much margin for error. You can't be doing this dumb stuff. And they did it again tonight. And I had no faith whatsoever that they were going to be able to stop Oregon. I tweeted, I was like, we might have to score 100 tonight. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to keep Oregon out of the end zone. Ironically, when they did make a pivotal stop late in the game in the fourth quarter to give us the ball back and tie the game up, we screwed it up. And that really sucked because I was biting my fingernails. I'm like, I just don't trust this defense to get a stop right here. Then they do, and then we can't capitalize on it. But whatever. It's a big problem, really big problem. I thought it was going to get ugly really fast. Still, the fact that we gave up 45 points, it's the most we've given up since 52 points in the Rose Bowl back in the 2016 season. Not a good look for Tom Allen. One of the worst defensive games I've ever seen. Obviously, it's a great opponent, but people were wide open. And there were gaping holes in the run game, too. So Oregon's a great team, but you can't come out with that type of performance defensively. It was ugly. It was really, really bad. I talked about margin for error. We'll get into Drew Aller right now. He did not need to be perfect today, but I was hoping that we would eliminate some of those bad throws, though those decisions he made. The one that just keeps replaying in my mind, him taking the deep shot to Harrison Wallace down the sideline in a situation where I just don't think you needed to do that. It was partially on him for throwing it, partially on Kotelnicki for calling it, because Harrison Wallace was the primary read on that play. They said it in the postgame. And then it's partially Harrison Wallace's fault for making just a really bad play on the ball. But we should know, we don't have a 50-50 guy on this team. We don't have somebody who could go up, high point a 50-50 ball and come down with a catch like we did in that 2016 team that won a Big Ten championship in that building. We don't have a Godwin. We don't have a Hamilton. We don't have a Saeed Blacknall. Nobody's going up and targeting that ball and picking it, or catching it rather. But the defender picked it. And don't get me wrong, great play on the football, but we just can't be dialing that up. And yeah, Drew Aller was not perfect today. He had 2 costly interceptions. The other one set Oregon up at the 1-yard line. All they had to do was run one play up the gut and convert for a touchdown in a situation where your defense finally did, once again, get a stop. Both times both times where we needed really, really big stops from the defense, they delivered, and then we turned the ball over after that, which kind of stunk. But yeah, he missed some throws too. I look back at that start to the second half, and we were able to move the ball. We're down 7 at the time. It's 31-24. And we have all this momentum, and we're coming out of the second half. I'm like, we're going to tie this game up right here. We were able to get into plus territory, moving along, drives looking great. Drew barely missed Tyler Warren, threw it a bit too high. It was a catchable ball. And Tyler Warren had a couple catchable balls today that he usually corrals, didn't today. Thankfully, the other one didn't come back to bite us. It was a lollipop that Drew just kind of lofted down the near sideline, and it was right in the breadbasket. Tyler Warren should have caught it, but thankfully we were able to come up with a big first down conversion later on in the drive, and I think we scored on that one too. But anyway, that throw on that first drive in the second half, where we just missed Tyler Warren, and then we couldn't get it going, and then we come out, we had to settle for a field goal. We missed the field goal, and Barker has been so solid all year. That was really the first one where you're like, okay, yeah, no, you really didn't hit that right. And it was a bummer. It was really deflating. And then, of course, the defense just let up a touchdown right after that, and you went from thinking, oh, yeah, we're going to tie this game up. The offense is moving. We're really driving here to, oh, no, we're down by 2 scores again. So there was that. And then the very next drive, I believe, we went 3 and out, or had just a really poor drive that didn't go anywhere. And it was partially because Drew missed a wide open Tyler Warren. So he had a couple throws today that I'm sure he'd like back. The interceptions were really crucial. The first one, the one that I said set Oregon up at the 1 yard line, was just a bad throw, really bad decision. And then that second one, we take a shot, a situation again where I don't think we need to take a shot because the run game had been killing it. You got 2 minutes left. You don't want to move too fast. It was 2nd and 1. You could just run it up the gut, pick up the first, and then maybe, queue up a passing play or whatever. But, yeah, whatever. It was a really sad way to go out because you thought, at the very least, we would get a real chance to go and tie the game, and then we blew it. What are you going to do, though? What are you going to do? Overall, though, Drew, I thought, had a really solid performance. He's been very accurate. His completion percentage has been through the roof this year. It was not that great today. He was 20 of 39. Had the 2 picks, obviously, whereas Oregon didn't have any. Oregon didn't have a single turnover, and that was pivotal. Penalties, turnovers, what Franklin always says, they were crucial in this game, and we'll get to the officiating in a second. But I still thought Drew made big plays. The one throw to Harrison Wallace to get to 37, I mean, it was insanity. One of the best throws I've ever seen from a Penn State quarterback. He's being dragged down by his jersey in the back, and he's able to rifle one into the end zone right on a dot to Harrison Wallace. And Harrison Wallace, thank goodness, came up with that catch because there were a couple other plays where our receivers did not come up with those catches. And it's just the same old thing, man. Linebackers on defense, wide receivers on offense, they're just not great. Not great at all. And Tez Johnson is just tearing us to shreds on the other side, which is really tough to see. Same thing with Ole Miss when we played them last year. Like, you're seeing these wide receivers dominate and go up and get the 50-50 balls and get these yards after the catch and really just have these great plays that for the most part are pretty standard that a lot of receivers can make and ours just can't. But whatever. It's just the same old stuff. Thankfully, Kotelnicki called a really good game today because he did not do that in the Ohio State game. He had redemption. I thought he was so solid today. And we got the run game going, man. It was unbelievable. Like I said, 8 yards a carry, over 8 yards a carry. Nick Singleton at over 10. Just crazy. Absolutely crazy. They were gashing Oregon with the run. Part of the reason why, again, I'm like looking at that 2nd and 1 where we tossed that long ball to Harrison Wallace. Why did we do that? I don't know. But this was exactly what we needed from the running backs. It was way more than what we needed. This was the best game they ever played at Penn State. But we needed them to come in because if there was one sore spot, one weakness of this Oregon team, there really isn't one though. But if you had to point to something that was a bit lackluster, it was the run defense. And we targeted that. We exploited that. My God, we were just running all over them. It was so great to see. And for 2 guys who have had a bit of a slump since freshman year, They came out, they were unbelievable their freshman year. Last year, offense is all wonky. They can't get into a rhythm. This year, they've been battling injuries. For them to come out today and perform the way they performed, it was awesome to see. And it was such a reassuring sign moving forward. Hopefully that can carry into a playoff game, especially if we're going to be playing in, 20 degrees and snow in State College. But kudos to them, man. And they helped this offense out tremendously. I thought there were stretches of this game where we looked amazing. And we were able to mask those deficiencies at receiver again. And we were able to get the ball to Tyler Warren. And Singleton's going, and Allen's going. And Drew was making plays with his legs. And then occasionally, he'd have a throw that was just ridiculous. But unfortunately, wasn't enough to get it done today again because of the crucial turnovers. And this defense just couldn't stop anything. 37 points from this offense, and we lose the game. It's really bad. I thought that there was no shot this was going to be a shootout. It did turn into one. And credit to Andy Kotelnicki, credit to Drew Aller, despite the two bad mistakes. Credit to this run game, credit to the offensive line too. It was a shootout, and they were able to compete in that shootout and had a chance to tie it up at the end. But we'll get to the 2-point conversion now, just because this really pisses me off. There's this new movement because of the analytics where if you're down by 14 and you score a touchdown to cut it to 8, you need to go for 2. And you cut it to a 6-point deficit. And that way, if you end up scoring another touchdown, all you have to do to win the game is just make the extra point. And if you don't get that 2-point conversion and it stays at 8 points, that deficit, well, odds are, the probability says, well, you missed this 2-point conversion, you're going to get the next one. That's essentially all it is. The expected probability of going, 1 for 2. Essentially, it's a coin flip, essentially, is what they're saying. Like, oh, well, if you don't get the first one, you'll get the next one. It's crazy. I hate it so much. Penn State had such a good drive to get us back into the game, and then immediately it just gets deflated because you don't pick up the 2-point conversion. And now what could have been a 7-point deficit turns into this like colossal mountain to overcome seemingly when it's 8 points and okay, we could score to tie this game up, but we're going to have to get the 2-point conversion. And it's just like this big monkey on your back that I don't like. Just take the extra point. We've done it before in these big games, and Franklin relies on the analytics stuff, and it's terrible. I hate it. Just completely took the air out of that stadium, despite the fact that we were coming back into the game. So that's one thing I just wanted to say. And then the other thing is this was a terribly officiated game. Point still stands. Penn State defense was terrible, and that's the reason why we lost the game. But while we're at it, I'll just say the officiating was garbage. So, I mean, there's only so much that you could see from inside the stadium on the replay board, because sometimes they don't show you everything. Sometimes they're only showing you one angle. Sometimes you don't have somebody to guide you through what is actually happening on the field. But there were a couple plays, especially late, where I'm like, what are they even looking at? What are they looking at? Missed calls, missed holding calls nonstop, where Denai is getting held. Abdul gets held all the time. Didn't call it. There was the one clear and obvious pass interference on Nick Singleton that if we connect on that pass, it was up the middle. He was across the middle of the field. That could have been a touchdown. And instead, he gets draped all over, and they don't call it. It's just bizarre. Though the one Amari Evans catch where he bobbled it a little bit going to the ground, but it never touched the ground, and they called it an incompletion, never thought to review it. Like, it's just crazy. It was a really badly reffed game. But again, it doesn't excuse the fact that Penn State gave up 45 points. Can't win many games when you're giving up 45 points. Also, another note, just going back to the wide receivers, I think in total they had 5 catches. Drew Aller had 20 completions. Only 5 of them were to a wide receiver. Pardon me, my eyes. I'm wearing my contacts. They're getting really dry. So it's the same old stuff. They're just not that great. And yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that, about the offense. I mean, Drew Aller, I love him. He's the most talented quarterback I've ever seen at Penn State. Had some mistakes in this one. The margin for error was slim, and we didn't necessarily play a perfect game by any means on either side of the football. But that being said, despite the fact that we made a lot of errors and gave Oregon a lot of chances, we still only lost by 8 points. to the best team in the country, to the number one team in the country, that does give you some reassurance. You hope that you could get that stuff cleaned up because there were chances, just like we gave Oregon chances. They were chances for us to win the game. But what are you going to do? Was not expecting to win this game. Wasn't even expecting to be in this game. But here we are in Indianapolis. I'm in an Airbnb. I just ranted for like 40 minutes. I really got to take my contacts out. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I really wanted to say. Not much. Still love Drew. Thought he played a really solid game. Just was, outdueled by Dylan Gabriel. And still love this team. What a fight. They never quit. They fall down every single game, especially in big games. They just are always losing to start, and they have to build their way back up, but they do. And no matter who the competition is, they're going to make it a game, and they're probably going to win it unless it's a team that's Ohio State or the number one team in the country. So I like this team's chances going into the bowl season, going into the playoff. But yeah, I'd be furious if what Joel Klatt is putting out right now, if Penn State really is the 8 seed, I'd be furious if that's what winds up happening, because it should not be happening. You got to respect the fight that Penn State just put up for 4 hours against the number one team in the country, and we need to reward them for that. Yes, we didn't come out with a win, but that was a hell of an effort, a hell of a performance, a lot of good to come out of it, even though this defense was absolutely exposed. But again, I've been saying it all year. I wasn't shocked by it one bit. Regardless, I love this team. Wish we could have pulled it out. Wish we could be going back to Happy Valley with some hardware. Wish we could have the number one seed in the country, because it did work out where, Georgia beat Texas. Texas was no longer going to be ahead of us. We could have gotten the 1 seed, but it is what it is, and we move on. 11-2, still a great season for Penn State football. Been a fun one, been a lot of fun games, this one included, and I can't wait for December 20th or December 21st. It'll probably be a noon game on December 21st, that home playoff game at Beaver Stadium. Can't wait. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Hopefully we get the good seed tomorrow. I'll probably have a reaction after that. But until then, this has been Connor Griffin signing off. I'm going to bed. Catch you next time. Thanks.